The National Desk, America's News Now.
Crisis averted. The spotlight now on President Biden, speaking shortly as he prepares to sign the newly passed deal to raise the debt ceiling.
It won't be today. The House and the Senate have to do their business, and so we're going to work very quickly with them to get this done, to make sure we can sign it hopefully as soon as tomorrow.
Collapse in Connecticut, the second U.S. building collapse in just 1 week. What we're learning about the people inside as crews in Iowa stop searching for survivors there. And about face, a change in direction as Fort Bragg takes on a new name. What's behind the rebrand to Fort Liberty? This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez, and right now we are waiting for President Biden to address the nation on the deal to raise the debt ceiling that's been passed by Congress and now awaits the president's signature. He's set to speak at 7 p.m. Eastern, less than an hour from right now. Now, this sets the stage for a bill signing ceremony tomorrow afternoon, officially ending the so-called extraordinary measures put in place by the Treasury Department to keep our government running and avoiding default on the country's debts, something experts feared would lead to economic catastrophe for Americans. Now, at this hour, we're following some breaking news out of Connecticut that we want to get to quickly here. Investigations there underway right now after a building collapse. This is the second one in the U.S. within just this past week. Here's what we know so far. At least 7 people are hurt. This happened at a construction site in New Haven near the Yale Medical School there. The fire chief there said that concrete that workers were pouring started to pool faster than they could spread it, and that's what caused everything to cave in. He said crews responded immediately, and they were able to rescue people partially buried under the rubble. 2 were able to get out on their own. The first collapse we told you about this week, that happened in Davenport, Iowa. Crews today wrapping up search and rescue efforts there, turning now to a recovery phase with 3 people still unaccounted for, now presumed dead. New surveillance video here, just released today, shows the support braces holding up that building. There you go. Then bending and breaking. This was on Sunday, and you see then the walls crumbling down. The city's chief building official, who allegedly tried to change the building's inspection records after the collapse, has resigned.
I'm going to tase you if you don't stop right now. I've already got you. Drop that good! I'm hit.
You are looking at just released Nashville police body cam video from Detective Donovan Coble, who was shot yesterday near Nashville International Airport. Officers were responding to a call about an armed man breaking into cars. The suspect, 37-year-old Dalama Casimir, died at the hospital. Detective Coble is expected to survive his injuries. And we're just getting some new numbers in here showing an increase in the number of officers getting shot on the job. The National Fraternal Order of Police reports it breaks down to more than 1 law enforcement officer shot per day so far. Well, today is the 152nd day of the year, and as of May 31st, 166 officers have been shot in the line of duty. That's a 30% increase from 2021 and a 40% increase over the year 2020. The FOP says 20 officers have died by gunshot wounds so far this year. Portland police are investigating any connection they can find to 6 unrelated women who have been found dead within 100 miles of each other in the greater Portland area just in the past 3 months. Bridget Leanne Ramsey Webster, Joanna Peaks, Charity Lynn Perry, Kristen Smith, Ashley Reel, and an unidentified woman of Native American or Native Alaskan descent were all found in wooded or secluded rural areas outside of the city since February of this year. No known ties between any of their deaths have been found as of yet. And retailers are reporting billions of losses right now, citing at least in part shoplifting and organized retail theft. Now some businesses are redesigning their stores, hoping to deter crime and also save their bottom line. Janae Bowens has more.
Organized retail theft is forcing an interesting twist. Take a look at this Walgreens in Chicago. Local reports show they only have 2 aisles of touchable merchandise with things like snacks. But everything else, you have to place an order at a digital kiosk or on the app and pick it up at a counter.
It's not going to work. They're going to lose a lot of customers.
Giant Food has hired security guards, limited self-checkout to 20 things, and is also securing certain items in their grocery stores. And that's according to the Washington Post. Not to mention, in San Francisco, the city's largest Whole Foods, a Nordstrom, and Old Navy's flagship store have all closed.
Well, unfortunately, these types of situations where stores are either locking up most of their merchandise or just leaving communities altogether is not uncommon.
Zach Smith with the Heritage Foundation says laws critics call soft on crime are to blame.
If the people who physically go into the stores and steal the merchandise feel like there aren't going to be consequences for their actions, or that the consequences are only going to be relatively minor for them.
And the latest retail security survey shows in 2021, retailers lost $94.5 billion. That's up from $90.8 billion in 2020.
Nobody is in favor of throwing every shoplifter in jail, but we definitely are in favor of breaking up rings and making it clear that if you participate in these rings, you're going to be prosecuted.
Stephanie Martz with the National Retail Federation says some of their members are worried about the future.
If you're getting to the point where it is literally unprofitable to have a store open, there's only so long you can justify keeping that store open.
Now, on June 27th, online markets must be in compliance with the Informed Consumers Act. Now, this new law requires more transparency from high-volume third-party sellers online, and retailers hope this will help with the fight to stop organized retail crime.
And Janae, what do consumers think about what's going on with the retail crime?
Well, a new survey from the National Retail Federation shows half of the customers say law enforcement and the courts are too lenient on those who steal from stores. And nearly 2/3 are concerned about gang-led shoplifting in their community. Eugene.
Janae Bowens in Washington, thank you. Former Vice President Mike Pence will not be charged for having classified documents found at his home back in January. The DOJ telling Pence's attorneys that they had completed their investigation. Mike Pence is expected to announce his candidacy for president next Wednesday. Meantime, the DOJ is still investigating former President Donald Trump for documents found at Mar-a-Lago, his Florida home, and President Biden for documents found at the Penn Biden Center, as well as President Biden's home in Delaware. The FBI is scheduled to deliver an internal law enforcement document to House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer Monday. Comer subpoenaed that document last month, made by an unnamed whistleblower, alleging a bribery scheme by then Vice President Joe Biden. The deadline set for the document was May 30th. Chairman Comer has threatened FBI Director Christopher Wray with a contempt of Congress charge for not handing over the document in a timely manner. Sources close to the matter acknowledge that the document, or a document, exists. It does not necessarily contain evidence to prove the claims, however. Right now, the number of migrants crossing the southern border illegally is at its lowest point since President Biden took office. Just over 3,000 are being stopped by Border Patrol each day, while a larger surge was expected as Title 42 came to an end. Officials say the Biden administration's new asylum limits have deterred the flow, and they say rainy weather is also discouraging migrants from crossing from Colombia into Panama as they make their way through South and Central America to get to the U.S. A newly approved plan could get homeless people off the streets in Seattle, but some are doubting whether it can actually be implemented. KOMO's Jeremy Harris reports.
With a unanimous vote, the board that governs the King County Regional Homelessness Authority said yes to a new 5-year plan to move faster in efforts to get people off Seattle streets and into shelter. But accomplishing that could be a challenge as the agency is trying to overcome serious questions about how it's operating and spending money. What instruction are you going to give to the new leadership team at RHA?
Well, number one, efficiency, that we have to make sure every dollar counts towards shelter. Am I confident that it's a good investment? So I'm evaluating the effectiveness of the investment. I think right now, everything we've learned has gotten us up to a point to make some critical decisions.
The authority has been in turmoil for months.
I don't care if they're a sex offender. I don't care if they're black.
A screaming match over a sex offender being given a position on an authority board got national media attention, and some homeless service providers said the authority was months behind on its bills. CEO Mark Jones also announced their resignation from the agency effective later this month.
Until something's done, we've gotten a lot of empty promises.
All this while the Homelessness Authority has faced constant criticism for not moving fast enough to give offers of housing to people in illegal encampments like this one near a school. and this one by a senior center in Seattle where someone was killed this week.
Get off your committees and get people to work.
With the 5-year plan now approved, Mayor Harrell says he's hopeful for quick progress on homelessness in Seattle, and he knows people in the city will be watching.
Part of their job has to, again, to sort of win the hearts and the minds of the people, because we want everyone, two things, sheltered, and we want those that need treatment treated.
That was Jeremy Harris reporting. Firefighters are still working to contain a major forest fire in New Jersey. A 5,000-acre fire started Wednesday night in the Bass River State Forest. It's in the southern part of the state, as you see here. The fire is now 80% contained and no longer posing a threat to buildings or residential areas. That's according to the New Jersey Forest Fire Service. The Garden State Parkway opened once again now after several miles were shut down this morning, but the smoke has reduced air quality in some areas, and that's what you see here on this map. People in sensitive groups, especially the elderly and young children, should limit their time outdoors right now. Pacific Gas and Electric, or PG&E, has agreed to pay $50 million to agencies in Shasta County, California, in a legal settlement over the deadly 2020 Zogg fire. Criminal charges against PG&E, including manslaughter and arson, will be dropped. The fire started when a pine tree made contact with the company's electrical lines, killing 4 people. The money will go toward rebuilding areas impacted by that fire, as well as future wildfire safety efforts. The settlement awaits final approval now by the judge. Coming up, we have the first named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season, where it poses the biggest threat. Then today's highly anticipated jobs report, a bit of a mixed bag. We're going to break down the numbers for you. And later, residents reacting to a serious crime committed by a 12-year-old. We're back in 90 seconds. We have the first named storm of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, and it has formed out in the Gulf of Mexico. Tropical storm Arlene, with wind speeds of 40 miles per hour. It's moving slowly right now, south-southeast, according to the National Hurricane Center. It is expected to weaken by tonight, and Arlene's not expected to directly impact Florida, but it's bringing in moisture, causing some showers and storms there. Florida residents could see 1 to 3 inches of rain, with up to 6 inches possible in some places through Sunday. Now, the 18th Airborne Corps of the U.S. Army, based in North Carolina, is now located at Fort Liberty, the base officially changing its name from Fort Bragg at a ceremony this morning. This was originally named for a Confederate general known for owning slaves and losing key Civil War battles that led to the Confederacy's downfall. Fort Polk in Louisiana will be the next installation to change its name. That's coming on June 13th to Fort Johnson in honor of Sergeant William Henry Johnson. The United States and South Korea held joint military exercises near the North Korean border today as a show of peace through strength. Thousands of spectators watching what is being called the largest live-fire military drill ever. 2,500 soldiers and 610 air and land vehicles taking part of this 5-day event. North Korea noted these types of games are why it has also conducted so many military tests. As summer approaches, a reminder to parents about the most common injuries, especially this time of year, and ways to prevent them. Medical reporter Barbara Morse breaks down the list of what typically lands a child in the ER during the summer months.
Between 2021 and 2022, injuries in that summertime period increased about 14%.
Between June and August of last year, 1 million injured kids landed in the ER.
The products that we saw with the most injuries in the summertime were swimming-related products, pools, bikes, trampolines, and then playground equipment.
SafeHome.org taking a deep dive into the latest numbers and research. And since swimming pool injuries are high on the list, teaching kids a basic understanding of what to do in and around a pool is paramount.
How to float, how to swim, how to get out of a dangerous situation. Even in really young children, they can start learning the basics.
Diving injuries are surprisingly high.
Last summer alone, there was over 4,000 injuries from diving boards.
Among kids 13 and older, biking injuries top the list.
Maybe when kids start to get into those teenage years, they might feel like, oh, it's not cool, I don't want to wear a helmet.
But no, most states require children 16 and under to wear a bike helmet while riding. And make sure your teen is up to snuff on traffic laws while biking. Bottom line?
Enjoy your summer, enjoy the time with your kids. I wouldn't overly focus on the things that could go wrong, but a little bit of preparation and a little bit of education for your children could really prevent, a trip to the emergency room.
Interesting to note, too, that the number one cause of injury in kids 2 and under is a trampoline. Nearly 4,400 injuries seen in the ER last summer, even though they're not recommended for kids under the age of 6. I'm medical reporter Barbara Morse.
We have some new jobs numbers to tell you about here. U.S. employers adding a robust 339,000 jobs in May, surpassing Wall Street's expectations. Now, this strong report was reflected in the stock market today. The Dow having its best day since January, climbing more than 700 points. The S&P and NASDAQ also seeing some big gains. On the other hand, the unemployment rate, that rose to 3.7%, up from a 5-decade low in April. And that's partially a result of higher layoffs or more layoffs. This despite 10 straight rate hikes meant to slow inflation. The Fed is expected to skip an increase this month. We'll watch and see what happens then. The Biden administration announcing today a 20-year ban of oil and gas development outside of Chaco Culture National Historical Park in northwestern New Mexico. The ban, which is for federal public lands only, is intended to protect the cultural and historical resources of the land that the tribal communities consider sacred. Navigating some major financial decisions has been especially tricky these past couple of years, with high inflation and a potential recession making the future pretty difficult to predict. But over the years, Americans' basic understanding of personal finance and the broader economy have been on the decline. Spotlight on America correspondent Atra Elnashah reports on the fight for financial literacy.
Earlier this year, Americans reached a milestone, and not one anyone wanted to see. For the first time, household debt reached $17 trillion. Inflation, rising mortgage rates, crushing student debt. For too many adults, getting ahead in life or just keeping up seems impossible.
All right, question 4.
But in this high school classroom, about an hour and a half outside the nation's capital, these kids are determined to be ready.
What do we call the portion of a car value that we do not finance when buying a car?
Down payment.
Mount Hebron High School's economics students are already young masters of personal finance, macroeconomics, and everything in between. And they've got national championship trophies to prove it.
They need to understand economic and economic reasoning for their future.
But outside these classroom walls, throughout the country, there's a financial literacy problem, and it comes at a price. A survey conducted by the National Financial Educators Council last year found, on average, a lack of financial literacy cost adults more than $1,800 in 2022. Perhaps it's not understanding interest rates, the housing market, budgeting, or saving for retirement.
Much like my students walking in here when they're 9th graders, we have adults walking on the street who have exactly the same amount of financial and economic education as those 14-year-old kids. And that's concerning. Having to pick that up on the run is very difficult. Having to pick that up on the run...
Costly.
Very costly.
According to the FINRA Foundation, measured financial literacy scores have been steadily declining for more than a decade. The price of not knowing is getting higher for Gen Zs, who face a steeper hill than their parents did to afford healthcare, education, or owning a home.
I'd like to own a home. I'd like to live debt-free. I think those are good things.
I would love to be part of the middle class or greater, and I would love to own my own business.
Diego and Natalie are two of the lucky ones. Their school happens to have an economics course, though their home state of Maryland does not require it. Neither do 24 other states in the District of Columbia, according to the Council for Economic Education.
Why does half this country not have the opportunity to take this?
The council's chief program officer, Christopher Caltabiano, advocates to state and local policymakers to add this to curriculums.
Understanding how you spend, understanding what investing looks like, understanding how credit works in this country, is understanding how those choices work within your life, and making the decisions that make the most sense for you.
Yeah, and not learning it all as you go as an adult.
And not learning it all by making mistakes.
He says almost everyone he encounters agrees it should be taught, but not all agree there's time in the day to teach it. Another obstacle, training teachers.
What happens to the market interest rate and private investment?
Econ teaches costs and the trade-offs that you face between options. You don't know how much you're missing until you learn it.
In fact, the case for teaching financial literacy may be a lesson in economics itself. Invest and know the risk when you don't. In Ellicott City, Maryland, I'm Atrell Najjar reporting for Spotlight on America.
Coming up on the National Desk, why one state is preparing for the worst as wildfire season ramps up. We'll be right back in 90 seconds. The National Desk is taking the pulse of America, and we begin in California with how investigators are preparing for wildfire season.
Investigators in the making, arsonist investigators.
So this is basically the final practical for students in what is known as the FI 210 class.
Also known as a wildland fire investigation course, teaching over 20 students the ins and outs of investigating any type of wildfire, crucial for this wildfire season conducted in Tehama County. The Deputy Chief of Law Enforcement explains how a certain communication skill for the student to learn is essential in arson investigations.
One of the big things that we teach students is really interviewing and the importance of witnesses and evidence that may be out there, such as video. You know, we live in a very digital age now. There's Ring cameras, there's home security, everybody has a cell phone. If they have anything that may be of value to the investigator, it is really important they get that to the investigator so they could evaluate it to see if it has any merit in the overall investigation.
It's a 1-2 punch of shock for people in Lacey. Not only was this huge fire deliberately set, but the person accused of causing it isn't even a teenager yet.
Now they're going out and making bad decisions, and it destroys their lives.
Unfortunately, you have a small percentage that are acting like this, and it puts all the kids in a bad light.
Our Air 4 chopper caught the intensity of this fire as it happened, all of it occurring in the middle of the day directly across from this school.
It's terrifying already to send your kids to schools, and then now they're doing that kind of stuff that close in the area. It makes you really nervous.
People here in Lacey say they thought a homeless person may have set this fire. But then came the astonishing news that a 12-year-old girl had been arrested.
Over to California now, where feral kitten season is a growing problem in rural areas in that state during the warmer months. And turns out this year seems to be a lot worse than previous ones. Volunteers, folks at the Haven Humane Society, and local vets have been trapping, storing, and releasing feral cats, forming colonies in and around the city of Redding, California. One volunteer says more people need to be aware of this rising cat population.
People think about it. I'm running a free spay and neuter clinic for the public at my cost for the city of Redding. It doesn't cost anybody else any time or money. The best thing they could do is pick it up, take it home, make a pet out of it, take it down to the vet, make an assignment, and get it fixed. All I know is that there are far more cats than there are people who want to make homes for cats.
This volunteer says that every week they go out to trap, neuter, and then release these cats back into society to try and stop the formation of cat colonies. Britain's second son, now living in California, might need to head back home to England because of something he wrote. We explain next in 90 seconds. Prince Harry's been living in California, but now his visa status will be in court next week. A federal judge will hear the case Tuesday in Washington, D.C. The right-leaning Heritage Foundation suing over whether the United States government followed proper procedure given Prince Harry's past drug use, which was revealed in his new book. The Heritage Foundation will argue that Prince Harry's U.S. immigration records should be unsealed. New revelations provide insight into the last days of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein before he died. Over 4,000 documents obtained by the Associated Press show jail officials observed Epstein was agitated and unable to sleep. Epstein reportedly called himself a coward and complained he was struggling to adapt to life behind bars. Epstein was under psychological observation when he committed suicide, making an attempt just days earlier. Documents show Epstein wrote to convicted sexual abuser Larry Nassar, but the letter was found returned to sender. That's going to do it for us right now. And don't forget to join us again tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern for the evening edition of The National Desk. And for news at any time, visit us online at thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching.